Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. My name is Louis Mendez. Hope you guys are all well on your Sunday morning. On today's show, we'll be looking back at yesterday's 3-1 defeat over at Loftus Road against Queen's Park Rangers. Joining me to look back at that game, first up, top right, is Lewis Cat. How you doing, Lou?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. A bit disappointed and flat after yesterday, but yeah, not too bad.
Not too bad. Lovely stuff. And bottom of the screen, a man who enjoyed all the best hospitality that the Loftus Road has to offer over in West London yesterday is Benji Cloak. How's it going, Ben?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, the hospitality was good. Very strange. You're kind of in like a glass container, so you don't get the atmosphere. But yeah, it wasn't a fun day at the final whistle, but everything else was good.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, Ben flying high there in the executive boxes. Yeah, Isaac asking if he's come back from his holiday on the moon and got some signal. Well, we'll see how that goes as the show goes on. So as I said on today's show, we'll look back at the game. We'll hear the goals from Charlton TV. We'll hear from the Addicts boss, Nathan Jones, as well. We want to hear from you guys. Mike Salmon's first one in the chat said, very disappointing result. Need to be concerned on our finishing, and when we dominate parts of games, we need to take advantage of it. Plenty of you in there. Have your say on yesterday's performance. Who stood out, good or bad? What did you make of the overall display? What have you learned about ourselves in the first month of the season now that we're going into the international break? You can email us, studio@charltonlive.co.uk. You can tweet us at Charlton Live, or the best thing to do is to add a live comment into the YouTube chat. So we can see it live during today's stream. Now, I wasn't there yesterday. I'm not well, so I had to watch it on my phone. So I didn't get the full experience of having to travel over to West London, but still was able to watch the entire game, Lou. And yeah, some frustrating elements. And in the end, obviously, we come away with a 3-1 defeat, second defeat in the Championship in a row, third defeat in a row if you count the cup game as well. What was your, before we hear the goals, Lewis, what was your overall summing up of yesterday's game?
I just thought we gave them a little bit too much respect. I think early doors, they were always going to come out fired up after their defeat last week. I think we'd be really silly to expect the same QPR that played at Coventry last week to turn up at home against us. And I thought that we should have used that to our advantage. We've been so used this season so far to starting games really quickly. Like, I thought we were really aggressive on the press against both Bristol and Watford, a little bit less so at the start against Leicester. But I think if we'd have gone at them early, put the pressure on, we could have turned the home crowd really quickly after last weekend. But we didn't do that. I think we gave them a little bit too much respect, and the goals were all quite disappointing. And I thought there were some disappointing performances from some players that were very out of character yesterday. And it was just, I think, all in all, a bit of a bad day at the office. I don't think it was a 3-1 game. I think the third goal was an anomaly, but the overall picture of it was fairly disappointing.
Yeah, it wasn't a 3-1 game, but also there was elements of yesterday that, again, maybe threatening to become a recurring theme at this stage in the season. But we'll talk about that as we get into the show. But let's have a quick listen back to the goals then from Charlton TV. Brownie was alongside Terry Smith.
On the line to Vale, inside to Kone, lets it go. Smith with the shot and the opening goal. Little too easy.
Yeah, I mean, that's come from a cross taken by the goalkeeper, bowled it out to Dembele, no one near him. Vale's run off the shoulder into the corner, not particularly picked up or followed or tracked, so therefore we couldn't get tight on the cross. Once the cross comes in, Kone with a lovely lead for Smith coming in at the far post. And once he cuts inside his man and gets in front, it's a side foot finish into the back of the net from close proximity. Charlton behind, and that was, as you say, Tel.
Edwards out to Campbell on the left. Campbell looking to take his man on. Does so. Ball across the box is a good one. Apter can't get a full enough contact, but it goes in anyway. The dropping ball on the edge of the 6-yard box, connected by Apter into the ground, and it took an age to go over the QPR defence. And Walsh in the goal just watched it into the right-hand corner, and Charlton are back level.
That is a little bit of luck, but you take every bit of luck you can get. Excellent from Campbell on the left-hand side. He was shown the line and he has to take it. He takes it and he drifts a beautiful delivery beyond everybody to the far post. What it needs then is your wing back on the other side coming round. He drives it into the floor and it's the only way he's going to score. If he catches it sweet, I think it gets blocked or the keeper saves it. But he drives it into the floor. It bounces over the centre half. Goalkeeper misjudges the flight, I think. I don't know what the keeper does, but he just chases it into the back.
And little touch to Campbell. Campbell being pressured and the ball taken off his toes, and it's Saito comes away with it up against Jones, goes past Jones, Saito with a shot, and it's gone in on the floor across the box, dragged in. QPR have the lead.
Of all the scenarios, I didn't have that one, I've got to be honest with you, and it comes from that little interception on the halfway line where they nick in front of Campbell, and from that point it gives them that. I did say they will always look to play into Coley and Saito. They're ball carriers by trade. Give credit to the little fella, it's a good turn. He's unbalanced Jones with a lovely little jink to the right and then back on his left, and the shot's not pure, but it's enough to just squeeze past Kaminski into the bottom corner. QPR lead.
Gets it away, sent forward again. It's a little touch to Kone. Kone's onside. This could wrap it up for QPR, and he does. Charlton pressing. Ball forward, defended by Morrison, and then when the ball's in the penalty area, no Charlton player close. A little touch into Kone's path, and he's sent away and clear. Slotted it past Kaminski.
Yeah, listen, truth be told, that the third goal is immaterial to the team and to Nathan Jones regarding how it's come about. We've got our centre half up front, and we're all at sea in terms of how we're set as a team. So you're chasing an equaliser, and that can happen from time to time.
There we go. That's the goals on Charlton TV with Brownie and with Tell. Ben, other than the fact that you were probably getting wined and dined in that hospitality box, hopefully you still had a clear view of the game. Someone's asking if you were the so and so in the box. Apparently there were some Charlton fans singing towards one, so they might have spotted you. Yeah, how did you feel yesterday? Someone said in the chat, forgive me if I've lost the comment just now, about how it felt like it was off from the start. I think of all the ways I saw yesterday's game starting, I didn't see QPR coming out that well and carving through us quite a few times. So they'd already had that chance with Dembele where he had the little flick off Kone and just completely miskicked it before the goal that came obviously within the first 10 minutes. It just something felt wrong from the start yesterday.
Yeah, I think you're right. Before the game, I kind of was saying to the lads in the box, I said, I actually think this is a bad time to play you guys, because you'll be surely getting a reaction from your players, because after last week's drubbing at home, I think they'd made 3 new signings going into the game. So you kind of thought, let's be aware that they're really going to come at us. And as Lewis said, there were very uncharacteristic mistakes in that defence. You just mentioned there, they opened us up after, 5-6 minutes, and Dembele should have scored. And then the goal. I mean, the goal was so uncharacteristic. We all moved over to one side, cross in, tap in, really, wasn't it? It was unmarked to the far post, and he nearly stuffed it under Kaminski. But it was just, we were second to every ball. They were hungry. They were fighting for it more. And that seemed weird, because we knew going into this game they were going to have a reaction, but it didn't seem like we were ready for it. And they were just first to every ball, getting in front of players like Amari Bell and Edwards. They just came down that side every time. Paulson was an absolute nuisance. Him and Dembele were linked that well. We just didn't seem like we could cope with them. So I guess that's probably psychological as well, right? We, in our heads as a team, we've just done so well against better sides, but we go in game and we're immediate thinking, it's probably been drilled into them, expect a reaction. We want an early start. If we can turn their fans, brilliant. But it didn't happen, did it? Until they scored and they changed their system a little bit, we came into the game, but then it was too late, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, it really it was a really strange start to the game. We did grow back into it, after, I don't know, would you say 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe, Lou? We started to have some pressure. Obviously hit the bar with Miles Lieburn, which is one of those ones. It's probably a more difficult chance than you realise, actually, with the ball coming over the head of the defender, and he did well to sort of get it near the goal. But on another day, maybe gets that underneath the bar and it goes in. And then we got back into it with the equaliser just after half time. First goal for the club for Rob Apter. One of the stranger goals you'll ever see. It was a deep cross from Tyrese Campbell, and Apter, I assume he was trying to direct it goalwards rather than back in towards the middle, but he did the only thing he could really do and just place it into the ground. And the keeper and the defender seemed to leave it for each other, and it drifts in at the far post. And after that moment, you're thinking, right, now is our time to really try and turn the screw a bit. And we did have a fair bit of pressure. I'd say from then on until QPR's second goal, we were certainly the side that looked like the more likely. And that's why I think you could hear in Terry's commentary there for the second goal for QPR, like a real sense of disappointment, because it's like, oh, this hasn't really been coming.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the Apter goal, it felt like it was in slow motion, didn't it, when it went in? But it was good to get back into the game at that point, because I did feel that once we got back into it at that stage, we'd knocked a few times, and I thought Apter actually had a really poor first half. I think it's the worst I've seen him play for us. So I'm glad he came out with a little bit more like him in that second half, gets his goal. And from that moment, I think you saw QPR wobble. And that's the moment in a game where you need to capitalise at this level. You have to take your chances when they come, and you have to, when you're the team that's in the ascendancy, you have to make the most of that. We had a few, half chances and stuff, but we just didn't really, in my opinion, trouble them a huge amount for, the fact how it felt from the stands and stuff. Their fans felt worried. Like when you're looking over at their fans and we've equalised, you can see that they looked quite defeatist, like thinking, oh, here we go again. But we didn't use that at all, in my opinion. And yeah, like you say, the goal, I thought it changed massively for them when they brought on Sato. I thought he was excellent when he came on. I think he absolutely bossed midfield. I mean, again, we gave him a little bit too much space, in my opinion. He was able to travel through, not just for the goal, but on numerous occasions. He was able to run through us like we weren't there. And that's something that we needed to deal with. And we didn't. I thought it's an issue that I think we have, is I feel like our midfield is bypassed a hell of a lot, and he was able to walk through. And we saw it with the goal, but I don't think that was the only occasion. And that's the difference when you have players of that quality at this level. They can turn a game, and a fairly below par QPR, in my opinion, were able to capitalise on that and get themselves back in the game. And from that moment, it didn't look like we would get it back here. I don't know what it is at the moment, but I just feel like going forwards, when we get in that final third, I just don't feel like we're going to score a goal. Like, I think we're devoid of confidence up top, and when they scored, we needed a reaction quickly then to get back in the game. We obviously threw Lloydie up to try and throw ourselves back into it, and that led to conceding the third, which, as Brownie said in the comms, immaterial. But yeah, I've got some concerns there that we create a lot. I mean, even last week at Leicester, right, we spoke about how great that performance was, and I'm not taking anything away from that performance, but there is a concern there when you're having that many shots on goal and none of them are going in. And I felt exactly the same yesterday. I just didn't think that we were going to put the ball in the back of the net. Once Apter had scored, I was like, right, now we need to capitalise. We didn't really have anything clear cut. We can maybe talk about Kelman getting dragged down by Mbenge potentially as something that could have turned the game, but I think we'd be clutching at straws there. So yeah, I think ultimately our lack of quality in the final third has probably cost us there.
Yeah, I mean, Paul says at 1-1 they were wobbling. The crowd seemed to turn. We needed to press home the advantage. And I mean, every single game we've played so far this season, we have had that spell, at least a spell, quite long spells in some games where we've been clearly in the ascendancy, Ben. But I think I said on Thursday that there is that time now where we have to start turning that into points and goals. And again, yesterday it wasn't really the case. As Lou said, I mean, the third goal was when we were chasing the game. It's just one of those things that can happen. But yeah, that's certainly the learning curve I'm sort of taking from this game. We saw it last week against Leicester. We saw it yesterday, against the QPR side, who, for all for all they did yesterday, and they took their moments when they came. They had a couple more. They hit the post towards the end of the first half. And like I said, they already had that really good chance for Dembele right at the start before they went 1-0 up. But overall, they took their moments better than we did. They capitalised on these things, and that's what you have to learn in the Championship is all of the players. And we are going to dive into individual players soon because there's individual players in the talking points because that's the discussion. That's football. But all of them, they will need to make that step up and get sharper and make sure that when your chances come, you take more than you miss.
Exactly that. You just got to be ruthless. The best chance we had was Lieberg in that first half when he hit the bar, which actually I felt he did quite well with because the ball bounced just before he hit it. But other than that, we did the goalkeeper to just conceded 7 the week before. So we didn't have enough shots at goal. I felt our press was poor yesterday as well. I thought because their defender passed it to their goalkeeper for their goal kicks. We just weren't pressing them. We weren't getting in their face. We weren't saying, let's pepper him. Conceded 7 last week. And I know from the fans I was with, none of them wanted him in goal yesterday because they had an experienced goalkeeper last season and he's just sitting on the bench. And this young keeper they're trying to go with this season. And I mean, in the first half, we had a few crosses and he kept dropping it. So I thought, why aren't we in there? Why aren't we at that? Yeah, I think we let ourselves down yesterday in terms of that because I felt we just could have done a lot more. And especially Lewis just said there, when Apter scored, we were so on top. We were there for it. And then we made substitutions. I don't think, as Lewis alluded to earlier, players not fit enough to play the whole 90 because Apter and Carey were looking good. And then we had a whole balance, but obviously it's a bit of a change of formation then when Kelman comes on because you just got 2 out-and-out strikers. You haven't got one striker and then a winger just off them in Tyrese. So, yeah, very frustrating because I just felt they were there for the taking. But I just don't often, as Lewis said, I share his thoughts that you were looking around thinking, but who is going to score? Who is going to take this game by the scruff of the neck? Is Tanto going to do it? Is Harvey Knibbs going to do it? Just like on Tuesday night, they didn't do enough to really give us any promise that they've got that in the locker yet.
One talking point that Nathan has brought up in his interviews, which we'll hear shortly, and Lewis, you did mention it. Mbenge, I was a bit puzzled as to how it wasn't a second yellow card for that foul on Charlie Kelman. Effectively, he tripped Kelman. It was cynical. He was going into the penalty area. So, I mean, us against 10 men historically over the years has never been that great anyway, but they should have gone down to 10. And I think he might have been involved in the second goal. I can't remember, but I think Nathan mentioned that he was. So that does feel like a bit of a turning point, something that will be talked about amongst many of the things that we did wrong ourselves.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, sadly for me, I thought that moment there could have been the turning point for Kelman as well, because I think he did really well to get that side of Mbenge closing down on goal, which obviously he's pulled down cynically, and arguably the defender should go. He's then later involved in the closing down of TC that leads to the second goal, which it's just, it's one of them, isn't it? It's just typical. But I think we did a lot more wrong over the majority of the game than can be put on that one decision. I mean, as you say, our record against 10 men is pretty rubbish anyway. But it could have turned it. I mean, I thought that Mbenge had a really good game for them. I thought he was someone we were interested in the summer, wasn't it? And I thought he performed really well. Again, he was able to drive out from the back. He made that run in the first half. He walked through us like we weren't there. Big, strong defender, gave us a tough time all game. And I think he played really well. And you could say, yeah, should he have gone? Maybe. But in that 10 minutes, would we have done enough to create? I don't know. I mean, you'd always say that having the extra man is obviously an advantage, but I just felt like it wasn't going to land for us yesterday. I don't think we created anything, even when we were in the ascendancy 11v11, that looked clear cut to me, really. So I think we'd be clutching at straws. Yes, we may have come away with a point or something, but I can't have seen us going on to win that game against 10 men. But yeah, I mean, it's. I thought the referee again yesterday. I don't know what it is about referees at this level. I thought they'd improve in the Championship, but I just think it's getting worse, the quality of refereeing. I think the amount of stop-start, you may as well be playing a non-contact sport half the time. It's insane, the amount of fouls that get given, and I don't know what it is. It feels like everything goes against us. Maybe you're allowed to be that little bit more physical in League One because you're playing against those big, lowly, brutal, traditional centre halves and centre mids and stuff, where maybe you can leave a little bit more in. But it feels like in the Championship, every time we make a challenge, the ref blows for it, which I don't know if that's just the standard of refereeing these days. But he seemed to see every single foul bar the one that probably was the closest to being a red card.
Mark says that our quality in the final third cost us yet again. The midfield is literally non-existent going forward. It's either Apter or long ball. That's literally it. I mean, as you can see, scrolling down the bottom there, we created 0.79 XG, which, if you're a fan of that stat, has not been our best return this season, certainly. Hurst, you're saying, why did he take off Apter and Carey? I swear Nathan Jones watches a different game to us. Odd lineup, weird subs and tactics. I mean, obviously, Ben, from your view in the hospitality box, you know, if you could see past the prawn sandwiches, what did you think those subs were the right ones yesterday?
I thought Apter was causing them a lot of problems, hence why they didn't pick him up for the goal, because he was at post on his own. Yeah, we just don't know, do we? Because we've not seen like a full game for Tanto. We've not, well, apart from tonight, but obviously it's different in the cup. These players aren't given the chance. So we don't really know like how good they're going to be for us in this system, because we're just getting like 15-20 minute cameos. They've got to make it work. But I mean, look, Rob Apter's been so good for us. I thought he did well yesterday. If you look, when they went 1-0 up, flipped over to the other side so they could double up on him every time, which obviously then, as I said earlier, Josh Edwards had a bit more space to create that chance for Liban. So they know he's our most dangerous output, but then puts more pressure on him. But yeah, it was odd, because you thought we are in the ascendancy. I think obviously the whole Kelman thing probably played in his mind, him trying to prove a point with bringing him on. But yes, I just find it hard to work out the subs yet and see. I mean, the first couple of games we've gone, yeah, look at this pace and power. It really pushed us on to get that goal against Watford. But then since then, it just hasn't really worked out as well as we hoped for with these players. And I don't know whether that's just because we're not seeing them from the start to show off their proper ability for us.
There's a couple of people just bringing it up there, like Alexander mentioned it in the chat. He said Kane Ramsey didn't have his best game, which it did from where I was watching on TV. It didn't look like he was quite up to his usual standards. But he, along with a couple of other people, have mentioned that Paul Smith was on fire and gave him a difficult time. I think we remember the Paul Smith that played for us in League One, a difficult time for him and a difficult time for us. But he's actually quite good. Like I did a QPR game a couple of years ago for the radio, and they played Plymouth at home, and I remember he came off the bench and he looked really lively. Like I think he's actually genuinely quite decent now for QPR, and finally turned into the player they always thought he was going to be. So I wasn't surprised to see that he's doing pretty well there. Dean made a really good point as well. Set pieces were way off yesterday. We couldn't beat our first man, or crosses were over here. I mean, that was one of the things I noticed with Apter yesterday. For someone who's praised his crossing really highly, that it did seem a little bit off yesterday, and set pieces overall were pretty poor. Was it Josh Edwards who had one quite near the end from a promising position that just went over, I think, over the bar, if I remember rightly? I mean, that was, yeah, moments like that were really disappointing yesterday. Decision making, certainly a big thing. Callum saying, you know, our season is pretty dependent on a 34-year-old coming back from a knee injury. One of these strikers needs to start scoring, and that's certainly true. Right, I'm going to go into the Nathan Jones interview now, actually, because I've got some real analysis I want to dive into on TC, because he's been a massive talking point over the last 24 hours. So I think we'll hear from Nathan first. So this is what the Addicts boss had to say. Now, as I mentioned at the top, I wasn't there yesterday, so this is Rich's recording from the press conference. So the audio quality isn't quite the same as when I'm stood there right in front of Nathan, but this is what the Addicts boss had to say after the defeat over at QPR yesterday.
As an overview, Nathan, first of all.
I think the game was just, we're right in the game in terms of everything. I just think it's about moments. We didn't start particularly well, and we allowed them to score from a counter-attack, from turning the ball over. Then we get ourselves back in it, have opportunities. We've hit the bar, we've had some opportunities. Then Kelman goes down, which is the second booking. Wasn't given because apparently it wasn't a promising attack, even though it's right on the edge on the edge of the 18 yards. I don't know how much more promising you have to get than that. And it's it's a categorical yellow card. Then we have a lot of set plays in and around their final third that we were weak and powder puff and give the ball to the keeper or put it behind. And those are the moments where we have to take. And then again, we've turned the ball over in the middle of the park and then they score from a counter-attack. That's the only way I saw them scoring really today, was from that. So there's a lesson to be learned there in terms of, one, this is a quality league, so they have individuals that can hurt you, and at the minute we're only getting done with the counter-attack. Third goal's by and by because we're trying to chase it, trying to get in. But that's what it was, game of moments that we didn't handle well enough, and other people didn't either.
You settled well, didn't you, after the first 20 minutes or so? Would you say that you began to implement your game fully?
Well, it was probably 10 minutes really, and I mean, look, they credit to their manager. They went against everything that they've done through pre-season, through the first 3 games of the season, and were very direct in terms of what they didn't risk possession, sat off, had a 4-4-2, very and we didn't show enough quality really to break them down. We controlled the game after the first probably 10 minutes really, and then wanted us to start really well, and we were okay, but then we got the goal, and then it's just the moments. We need to demonstrate more quality in those moments. And then look, there is a big decision that went against us that you expect people to get right, and he had a hand, and Benge won the ball off TC, gave it to their player, and he scored. So it had a big impact on the game.
Pleasing to see Rob Apter get on the score sheet for you as well. At that stage, it looks like you're going to go on, doesn't it, really, and get the points? Well,
we were. I thought we were in the centre, but then what we did was every time we had opportunities, they committed fouls, and we had opportunities, corners, set plays and stuff, but we didn't take advantage of them. We didn't put the ball in areas to score. We put balls out the back into the keeper's hand, and we were powder puff in that moment. That's when you need that killer, and that's when you need to go on and take it. But we didn't, and then, as you said, another counter-attack, and that's what's cost us the game.
When you look at the first month up to the international break, what are your thoughts on the start? Because obviously Leicester the week before, super unlucky not to get anything if not a win out of that one. How do you kind of feel about the opening month?
Well, look, I think we've had a look at the league. We've settled, I think, quite comfortably in the league in terms of our performance, in terms of how we've gone about it. We're learning that if you don't punish teams, they'll punish you, because we had 20 shots against Leicester and they scored a world-class goal, and that's what took to beat us. So we're learning, and we're also, if we don't defend and we're not the best version of ourselves, then we're going to get punished. So it's a learning curve for us. We're new into the league, and we have to learn quickly.
Nathan, obviously a couple of days to transfer in. I have to ask this question: is are you all done, or is there an opportunity to bring a couple more in?
No, we are looking, to strengthen the squad. It won't be a couple more; it'll probably be one, but it's just that one that we need. We have to make sure that we get it right. We've got a good squad. We are weak in one area, which we have to address. But we have tried to address that for the last 7 or 8 months, if I'm honest. Yeah, so it's probably just a little bit more quality we need, because I said we're in games, we are learning about the league, but in the moments that we get, we have to be better, and that's, I know that will come.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders, such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live on your Sunday morning. Oh, we've lost Ben. I don't know where he's gone, so it's just me and Lewis for the moment. There he is. He's come back. Yeah, so we just heard there from the Addicts boss, Nathan Jones, after yesterday's defeat over at Loftus Road. I mean, he pulled no punches as he really does, but as Dudley says, powder puff. He's not wrong there, is he? I think, was he talking about the set pieces there, or just the way we were attacking in general? It was a massive. We let him off massively with our set pieces yesterday. Liam says set pieces yesterday were tragic after looking really good in the first 3 games. A couple of people are asking if it's because James Brains left. I mean, yeah, Joseph saying since Brains left, the set pieces have gone to pot. I mean, if you think that Danny Hilton is going there and saying, right, when you whip this set piece in, make sure you roll it towards the man at the front post, and there's no way that has made that much of a difference that quickly. It was poor delivery yesterday, and that's not something the set piece coach can massively control. I think, that's something the players will take onto themselves. But yeah, that was disappointing yesterday. Lou, how else did you sum up Nathan's reaction to yesterday's game? Like he mentioned what the problems were, I guess. Like he never has, but if he was coming out and trying to play out that we played really well yesterday, that would be a concern. He seems to know. He can see where it's wrong, so obviously it's up to him, especially this 2 weeks, which I think is absolutely massive now on a training ground to put things right, and not just for the players that haven't. I mean, these 2 weeks for Harvey Nibbs, for Charlie Kelman, for all the players who are behind on pre-season. Rich on the pod I did with him yesterday stopped himself saying there's no more excuses, but I will say that there are no more excuses now for fitness or anything after these 2 weeks.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, on Nathan's comments, I think we can always appreciate that he's fairly honest. Like, he doesn't really skirt around the truth, as he speaks his mind, probably sometimes a little bit too much. And it was outright disappointing yesterday. I think he knows that. Set pieces for him will be a massive frustration, because that's probably where we've been at our most threatening when they've been good, especially from corners. I think against Leicester, Watford, we kept repeating that same structure from a corner of hitting the back post, aiming for Lloydie, him getting it across, and we've looked dangerous in all of those opportunities when we've done that. But yesterday, like you say, you can't really pin your set pieces on a coach when the delivery is the issue. Like yesterday was out of character. I think we hit Walsh's gloves more times than anything from corners and free kicks. Didn't get it into dangerous areas, and that's probably, given that how we're playing at the moment, which is a little bit more direct, they're the areas that we should be trying to capitalize on, and we're not. And on this break now, yeah, I think it comes at a critical time. Obviously, there's about a day and a half left of the window, isn't there? And he said there that he wants to bring in someone or a couple, probably one. It's the areas that I assume the area wants to target. It's probably the wing back area. But I still think we're a midfielder off as well, to be honest. But I think it's critical this next couple of weeks, getting on the training ground, assessing progress so far. If we looked back a week ago after the Leicester game, and you'd say it wasn't overly too bad. We're really unlucky to lose against Leicester. We've got a great result at Bristol City away, and we beat Watford. But now you're looking at sort of 3 defeats in a row when you include the cup game, and the manner of the defeat yesterday and the manner of the defeat on Tuesday night. There's obviously work there to be done. And as you say, it's not an excuse anymore when it comes to fitness and stuff like that. Ben mentioned earlier about the taking Apter and Carey off, seems to be on the 60-minute mark, 70-minute mark every week. For me, they've been our most consistent performers over the 3 games that have carried some kind of threat. So if that's the case, why are we having to do that? Is it tactical? Is it because they can't play the full 90? And then also it's getting some confidence and some finishing into the strikers, because we've spent a lot of money on strikers in Charlie Kelman and Tanto, and both of them aren't starting at the moment. They can't get in over Leeburn or TC. That's a concern for me, because we've committed a lot of financial investment into our front line, and the 2 that we've committed the money to can't seem to get into the side. I thought yesterday we brought Tanto on far too late, because I think that he can stretch games. He's sort of like the new Anike, where he's physical, he's quick, he's good with his feet. He sort of brings that to his game, which I think we needed yesterday, especially when we got in the ascendancy. Maybe the sub at that time was that he brings on Tanto over Kelman. I don't know, but that's a concern for me, that we've committed a lot. You know, when we looked at the business at the start of the season, we're like, oh, the striking options we have, incredible. You know, a fit Miles Lieburn, TC, Tanto, Kelman. We're looking at those options thinking, okay, that's a really good set of options. But we're, 4 games into the season, none of those strikers have notched a goal yet. There's work there that needs to be done. And the Kelman one is a big one, because I think there's a confidence issue there. And because we've paid a big fee for him, that expectation is on his shoulders. And maybe because we're not great at scoring goals, the expectation on him is a lot higher than it would be on some of the others. I feel like Kelman gets a harder rap than Tanto, for example. But I think that's something that needs to be worked on. As you say, it's 2 weeks on the training ground now, and we go into an absolutely huge game at the Valley, which I think it's the least ideal fixture to go into after this couple of weeks. I think we could have done with one in the middle, but what a way to react if we do go and do something against Millwall at home. So yeah, the next couple of weeks on that training ground are going to be absolutely critical for us.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We're going into Millwall off the back of 3 defeats in all competitions, and we're thinking, right, that's not really the sort of run of form we want to be going into that game with. But perversely, if we'd won our last 10 games and we had Millwall coming up next, we'll be going, oh, bloody hell, these runs can't last, can they? So it's typical Millwall going to be the ones to stop it. So, yeah, we overthink the Millwall fixture too much. I already am as well. It's a couple of weeks away, but there we go. Right, let's get into TC then, Ben. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, because I'm not well, I wasn't there yesterday. We've got enough struggles as it is without me turning up and infecting everyone. So I was able to. I was watching a game on the television, and obviously I'm more likely to be looking at social media than I would be if I'm actually at the game. Just because I've got more scope to do so because I'm not working. So TC was the name that came up the most, I'd say, on social media yesterday. Maybe people will say otherwise, but that's the one I certainly picked up the most. First of all, I mean, let's sort of go through some of the biggest moments that he was involved in from memory. So this is a little bit from memory, so people might pick up other things as well. But putting across for the goal, obviously that happened. Soon after the goal, had that shot from a tight angle where A, he could have gone down for a penalty, and B, Miles Lieburn was wide open in the middle. So either he could have made 2 different decisions there that you might have done better with. Hit the shot quite well, to be fair to him. Clearly lost the ball on the halfway line for QPR's second goal, which you don't want to be losing the ball there, but also you don't want someone to be able to then run through half the team without really a challenge coming in. So TC at fault there, but others as well. Before I dive into these stats, because I actually found them quite interesting, but your overall thoughts on his performance yesterday?
I'd say frustration is my overall thought, because you're right. He was at most of the dangerous parts of our play yesterday. He was very threatening. They were worried about him in the first half. They pulled him down a few times as well. That's how we got our free kicks around the box. But obviously we didn't take those chances. I think the thing that sticks most in people's head is the goal. He obviously goes down, kind of falls over the ball, looking up to the ref for a foul, doesn't get it, and they go on to score a great solo goal. So you go, flipping heck, TC, come on, be stronger there, stand up. But he didn't. As you said, for Lieburn, he could have cut it back for Lieburn. He chose to shoot for that chance. Was it too tight of an angle? I just think last season, we probably looked at the situation and gone, yeah, but look, he's exciting, he gets fouled, but you just need that bit more now in the Championship, don't we? We need to see an assist from him. We need to see a goal from him, because that's what we're getting killed for the other end. The other players like Fatawu, like I can't remember his name yesterday, but the guy who scored their second goal. Saito, that's it. They were clinical, weren't they? They cut inside, scored. And TC is our outlet for that, but he's last week, obviously, that's on people's minds as well. With that miss against Leicester in the last few minutes, we're thinking about that. And that's not saying he's a bad player. It's just saying that step up from League One to the Championship, he's just not there yet because he's not being clinical enough. But as we said earlier, that could be the same for a lot of other players. And he's going to come under criticism a bit more because he's the player that gets on the ball more and tries to make things happen. But yeah, I can understand I was frustrated with him. Yes, I thought his touch and his crosses into the box before, but then you can't say better. But you pick up because he is the player that we look to happen.
Yeah, right. Sorry, we lost you a bit with your Wi-Fi right towards the end there. But okay, so let's go through some of the chat. There's quite a few people having their say on TC. I mean, Liam just saying there were questions over TC. They were there before the season even kicked off. Ethan saying I like TC, but clinical is the key word, and I think he's missing that at this stage, which I definitely think is fair. Redmond saying he thinks he and Apter are both good dribblers. Loads of chat about him, actually. I think Rufus said, I think he was on the pitch for too long. He runs and runs, but then by 80 minutes, he's tired. Joseph said he was too honest when he didn't go down, which I agree with. Mickey says he thinks he needs to come out of the team now. He's lacking form and confidence. His strength is breaking the lines, and he's been ineffective. Sam saying he should have gone down for the pen. Paul thought he was weak when holding up the ball for the second goal. Paul pointing out a different Paul saying that when he lost the ball for the second, he still had Saito still had plenty of space to run into. TC had no one to lay it off to, and ultimately no one help it if he lost it, which he did. Paul says he doesn't want to jump on the TC bandwagon. He's doing some good things in the Championship that he could get away with. That he could get away with in League One. So doing some things in the Championship he could get away with. Norm said he should have been stronger. Dudley saying slating him every week won't do his confidence any good or help his performance. Keith saying we need another attacking midfielder or someone to cover his position. Louis said he felt like he was scapegoated yesterday. So there's bits and pieces of both sides that I can see. So for example, he's got to be more clinical, but I could say that about everyone in the side yesterday because we scored 2 goals all season. I think that's true for a lot of people. The other question we have to ask ourselves is then who else does his role in the side, or who else could do his role in the side? I think the obvious one is maybe Tanto Lewis, but we don't know it yet because we ain't seen it. So maybe that's something that Nathan will think about. But I wanted to bring up these stats. So forgive me if they're going to look really tiny on your screen. But it's a website called Football FB. Ref.com. So you'll just have to trust me because I know it's quite small on your screen, but someone shared this website on the forum this morning. It is one that I've looked at quite a bit over the years, and I think it sort of highlights both where TC could improve. So there's some stats here that he clearly could improve in, but also where he does stuff that maybe not everyone else does for the side. So I'm looking at the possession thing here. So he's top of the charts for carries into the final third. So he's done 6 over the course of the season so far, which is a couple ahead of Apter. He's second top, for progressive carries with 8. So Apter's got 12. Carries into the penalty area. Him and Apter are 6 and 5. So they're quite close on that one. So there's stats that show he's quite high up. But then if you look at things like dispossessed, Tyrese Campbell has been dispossessed more than anyone else. He's been dispossessed 8 times, but Rob Apter again 6. So one of the things I'll point out at this stage is the players that we're asking to do the carrying with the ball and to create things from almost nothing are the ones that lose the ball the most. So that happens to the pair of them. So I found that quite interesting. So so there's elements of that. There's also another stat which I found on one of these things, which is shot creating action. So Tyrese Campbell joint top with Connor Coventry for the most. So he creates the most stuff for us, shot creating actions. So there are stats that show he could do stuff for us. You know, he creates our most shot creating actions so far. In terms of carrying the ball, he does a lot of that for us. There are elements that I think go underappreciated maybe, and I think some of the reasons that Nathan likes him is because he is at the top of these charts for us, Lewis. I mean, is that fair? Am I showing too much? Am I relying too much on stats? Because sometimes stats don't pass what I call the eye test, which is what people see with the naked eye, and fans are getting frustrated with some of his stuff. What do we make of this? We're 4 games in. Maybe we're reading too much into it, but he is showing in the stage of some of our stats that he's at the top, and then also some of them he's been a bit disappointing. So how do you see it?
I think with TC, it's purely, I've just seen Sam Palmer's put it in the chat. I think it's down to end product with supporters. And I think he gets a hard rap because the lack of quality in the final third and the lack of end product, which whether that's goals, deliveries, whatever, I think he's played in a position that's been a little bit dissimilar to, he's not really seen as a striker. Obviously, Nathan's molded him into this position, but for us supporters who have seen him come through the academy, we're maybe used to seeing him predominantly playing a little bit wider, where he can create a little bit more, and when he's in the middle and we're not scoring goals, the expectation to get himself on the score sheet, which he wouldn't have as much if he was playing out wide, is landing on his shoulders. It's the same reason that Miles sometimes gets a tough rap. I think we're ultimately a side that doesn't score a huge amount of goals, and that ultimately in games, especially at this level, you need that. And I just think that there are elements of TC's game where I think he's a little bit too casual, and I think it's because he was afforded a lot more time and space in League One than you are in the Championship. You come up against someone in League One, they give you a little bit too much respect. You come up against experienced people in the Championship, you don't get that same time afforded to you. And I think there are elements of TC's game that are very casual with, sometimes little flicks into nowhere and things like that, trying to be a little bit too clever. But there are also elements of his game where he looks dangerous. And there are times, I remember at halftime yesterday, I think I texted our WhatsApp group, like, I can't get on with it anymore. I can't get on with TC playing in the front two. And then he came out the second half in that first sort of 15 minutes and looked really dangerous. I'm thinking, right, this is the TC that we need. Then when we make the sub and we put him over to right wing back, I'm kind of thinking, I just don't know if that's his position. And it feels sometimes a little bit like we're trying to crowbar TC into that side. And I just think there are areas where Apter as well is top of a lot of those stats on the chart that you've got. We lost Apter yesterday for TC in that area. I don't think TC bought the same as Apter did in that area. I don't know if I think there's the comment earlier on about the scapegoating. I think is fairly relevant as well. I think that sometimes our academy prospects that have high expectations and that we have high hopes for sometimes get an unfair rap. We saw it with Albie for years, didn't we? Maybe there's an element of that with TC, but I do think that there is an element where it's purely down to the fact that we are not very clinical in the final third and we're struggling in the final third through our strikers. TC is one of those strikers, and maybe because we're struggling, we're thinking, why are we persisting with Tyrese Campbell in a position that isn't overly his first choice?
I do agree that when he goes to right wing back, I mean, it's because it's later on in the games, and I just think that's he's knackered by then. So he's looked bad every time he's gone there so far. He's not really affected as much as we would like. But then I guess the question then becomes, well, who else? If Apter's definitely going off, then who else is going to be it? I've just looked at FOTMob now. So I mean, he's expected assists yesterday. If you want that, is very low, but he was joint highest on chances created according to this as well. So I can see why Nathan's persisting with him, because I don't think other than maybe Apter, anyone else really does that for us. But we'll see. I mean, these are good points. Mark particularly saying we're Stats FC at the moment. Everything looks good on paper, but there are inherent problems with the final third quality play. That explains the 2 goals in 4 games. So, everything has to sharpen up in that final third of the pitch. I mean, I think that's clear. And Paul says he thinks stats can be misleading visual end product. I'm afraid. Agreed with Paul here. Tanto's non-performance at Cambridge wouldn't have helped him when Nathan was thinking about his starting lineup for yesterday. Keith thinks that knocking TC isn't helping. I'm sure he knows he needs to up his game. Maybe give him a rest and bring him off the bench for 30 minutes to get at tired defences and get his confidence up. Trim says he thinks he has negative body language. I think I've said over the years that I try not to read too much into body language of different players, because all footballers have different characters and they look different when things are going well on the pitch. And sometimes, even when TC's playing well, I think his body language is always looks quite similar to me. So I don't tend to read too much into that. But Paul would say I'd be interested to see how the Godders and TC tandem works in the Championship. Hopefully we can replicate that this season. What did you make of him yesterday, Ben TC? As Paul saying, he's a shy guy. I think that's why I think his body language is like that. He's just a shy fella. He's not an expressive. Well, not to us anyway. He's not an expressive fella, is he? Like, so maybe reading too much into his body language, I think maybe doesn't need doing.
I think his hair's quite unusual as well. He's got like one bit up on the side, the other just flowing as he's running. I always think, what are you doing there with your hair? But again, he was our most dangerous outlet, and we do pick up on. If the game finished 1-1, maybe we were today, and it would have come up. He got an a random assist, because the goal was one of the most strangest goals you'll see. But that would have said Tyrese Campbell assist. We could look at his stats after the game, and I mean, if we were to look at his running stats for the game, he probably ran the most. We're asking him to do a lot. We're asking him to create and then run back and tuck in, as you said, towards the end of the game. So heat on him, but also we've got to remember, as a unit, we are playing against championship sides now, championship goalkeepers, championship defenders, and these guys were in League One last year, so it is a step up. We've got to remember that as a fan base as well, to be patient. We're analysing games as we see them, because we are now in the championship and we now are facing teams like that. So immediately go, right, this is what went well, this is what went bad. We're analysing like that. But I think if you were to look at a bigger picture, you would say these players do need time. I mean, look at last season. We started well, but we did not all the players started well. Matty Godden didn't start very well. And then he grew into it and became one of our best players last year. At the start of last season, he had a bit part role. And then like Macaulay Gillespie, another player like that came into it later on in the season. So I think we've got to remember lots of new players in different roles, trying to gel, trying to cross balls at the right time, because you know that player's going to be there, or just that kind of thing happening as well. I think it's hard because we're used to winning from last season. We really want to stay in this league because we don't want to go down again. But we also got to remember it's early doors. These players are just going to take a bit of time as well. And we are getting the chances, as we've said so many times this season already. Like we're playing well. We're not playing badly. It's just frustrating. Then when that's not showing on the scoreline, but still a lot of promise. Just need to be a bit patient, in my opinion.
Yeah, Mark says, I do think it's mad that he's played over 100 games for us and he's only 21. It's easy to forget he's still very much a prospect. And Ed says, I think it's fair to say players given an opportunity to get a run of games in the league will produce more than a run out in a League Cup with the youngsters. I wouldn't read too much into that. It's another thing we should probably talk about. Louis said not 100% convinced by Kaminsky yesterday. I don't think he should be letting in the first one. So yeah, it seems to sort of go through his legs a little bit. I mean, it was from relatively close range. He got away with one in the second half as well, where it was a shot. I can't remember. It was maybe from just the edge of the box where he sort of spilt it. It wasn't like a parry, like a yard in front of him. It came out about 5-6 yards, but luckily there was no one following the shot in. I mean, we've all season before yesterday, we've been saying we really don't know if he's any good because we ain't seen him have to do anything yesterday. So obviously he had a couple of moments yesterday. Made a save from the free kick, the low down one, which he got down to. What did you make of him yesterday, Lou?
I think with Kaminsky, when he came in, there was a little bit of criticism from Luton about, his decision, or maybe his indecision when it comes to coming out, whether it's to claim crosses or close down 1v1s or whatever. In terms of shot stopping, though, they have praised him very highly. So from what I've seen of him so far, I think we're maybe expecting a little bit more from him than we're going to get, because he was so good for Luton in the Premier League. It was a Luton side last season that were relegated. He's obviously a good goalkeeper. He had good interest in the summer from various clubs, and he's come over to us. I think he brings some experience. I think there's times where I think he calms the game down a little bit. I don't feel overly nervous when he's got the ball at his feet. I think some of his distribution's been really good, which is something he was criticised for heavily at Luton. I think the first goal, I mean, you know what it's like at Loftus Road, though. It's sometimes hard to see the goal from where you're sitting in that away stand, but you kind of couldn't really see how he got that touch. But yeah, watching the highlights back, Smith's shot was straight at him. Could he have done better? Did Did he expect to try and make the save from Kone when he dummied it and it went to Smith? I don't know. We might be being a little bit harsh, but yeah, I felt like it was straight at him, and maybe he could have done better. My concern was more so with the second goal, and I think Rich tweeted this yesterday about maybe his indecision whether to come out or whether to not, and he kind of changed his mind last minute, and it probably was too late to do anything by the time he'd done that. But in other games, you write yesterday off. In other games, I think he does need to be a little bit clearer on what he wants to do, if he's going to come off of his line and claim or if he's going to stay. And I feel like he does have that indecision. We saw it in the first game against Watford as well, where he'd sort of come out and they should have probably had a penalty. But he feels like he leaves those decisions a little bit late and then sometimes changes his mind as he's making it. And that sort of indecisiveness can cost us. But maybe that will come with playing a few more games. He's playing with a completely new team, a new back line. He spent two seasons, 3 seasons at Luton. So he's got to adapt like everybody else has. I think all in all, he's a good goalkeeper. And I think the more he plays, the better he'll get. But yeah, maybe could have done a little bit better with some of the goals yesterday. But all in all, so far, I've not been overly concerned.
Yeah, Ethan points out that the goalie does the pressure on a Thursday, and then Charlton concede 3 in the game. So yeah, it's Richard Corley's fault, got in his head. Right, let's have a look at a couple of the emails. Richard Church says we were competitive. I'm sure it will be argued that we could have won it, but for me, the bottom line is we lost, and we have to look at why. See, that's a fair point actually, Richard. So to be fair, I don't. None of us have actually come out and say we could have won it yet, but there would have been a temptation to do that with the way we had those spells. But I think we're starting to learn now as a supporter base that we're looking at these spells and we have to make more of them, and that's why we're not winning games at the moment. So I think it being argued that we could have won it will sort of run dry quite quickly if we keep doing it, as we sort of said earlier on in the show. But that is a fair point. So we haven't talked about this much. He said Doherty and Carey were simply not impacting the game. He thought the subs came on too late and were ineffectual at best. Apter was one of our biggest threats all game, and he was the first player to make way. This then saw TC shoved over to the right, which meant the threat we did have down both flanks was gone. Not suggesting we didn't try, but I think every player was trying their best, and I can't fault the endeavour, but it's not enough. You have to have some quality, and we didn't have enough. 4 points from 4 games, and Millwall up next. He says he's worried. That's from Richard. Cheers, Richard. Ray says very disappointing, never a 3-1 game. For the second goal, you cannot let Saito run for 30 yards with no challenge. We backed off and made it too easy for him. That's from Ray. Carl says, left the game frustrated again this week. We were second best for the opening 25, but then thought we were on top until their second goal. What frustrates Carl the most, though, is that we did the hard work to get level and then had them under pressure for lots of the second half. They looked panicked and were settling for a draw. Our set pieces let them off the hook. Needed better delivery, and I would have stopped the loopy balls in with their goalkeeper under pressure. Let's see how we bounce back. Enjoy your weekend relaxing next week. That's from Carl. And then finally from Sally, says, well, concentrating on the league went well. In serious, though, had we had a full-strength team for the Cambridge game after playing so well against Leicester and got a win, we would have gone into today's game with a winning mentality and with a bit of consistency, which is something that managers often talk about. I hope Nathan Jones has learned from that and takes the FA Cup more seriously than he did the League Cup. Finally, so the transfer window's closing, starting next week, Ben. Sounds like one then from what Nathan said in the press conference, which we heard there. Is that enough? Will you be content with that? And we're assuming wing backs, but yeah, because would it be someone's coming over, Rob? I'd suggest not. So what are you hoping for? What type of profile of player?
I kind of agree with Lewis there as well, actually, like a ball-carrying midfielder. I think we lacked that yesterday, didn't we? Maybe we're looking at that because their guy scored such a good goal like that. But yeah, we definitely need another defender. But as you guys mentioned on Thursday, you're going to try and sign a defender that's not going to walk into the back three. So that's going to be a hard position to get. Yeah, it was. Oh, by the way, it was nice to see Burke on the bench and looking fit yesterday because we've missed him, and that was quite a surprise to see him on the bench. We didn't say about that, but yeah, I think we just got to get another defender that can kind of be like Bell, and you can play him at full back and at centre back. I think that's the key position we really need. So yeah, if we don't get it over the line, that will be quite worrying because. Yeah, with Burke's fitness levels and obviously with the showing on Tuesday with the defence that played, we definitely need someone in to kind of strengthen that area and push for a place in the side.
Lovely stuff. Right, we've run out of time on this week's Charlton Live. Thanks for everyone who's joined us this morning. Are we saying it's a group therapy session because we've lost a couple of games? We haven't said that for ages. So thank you for joining our Sunday morning group therapy session. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, if you want some Charlton Live merch, a Charlton Live mug, charltonlive.etsy.com. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and wherever you see our podcast, hit subscribe. You will never miss another episode. You won't get any episodes for the next week or so because it's international break. So we will not be here until the Thursday before the Millwall game. I will wrap up the transfer window with Rich over on the Substack if you want to sign up to that, though. And listen, that will be out on Thursday morning. But yeah, thanks for everyone who's joined us in the chat. Really enjoyed all your comments and your emails. Some good debates as well, actually, especially the TC stuff. It's good to get as many viewpoints as possible, and I think we covered all of them there. So really pleased for everyone who gave us your opinions. Lewis and Ben, absolute pleasure as always.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Lovely stuff. So this has been Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. My name is Louis Mendes. Thanks for your time. We'll see you a week on Thursday.